Hello everyone, and welcome to Teacher Talk, organized by TESOL TalentHut Academy. A podcast where educators come together to share their ideas, experiences, and bold conversations that shape the future of learning. I'm your host, Sabina Rustambov from Land of the Fire, Azerbaijan. Today's episode is titled Breaking Barriers in Education. We'll be exploring together with you literacy, equity, multilingual education, and the power of storytelling with an educator whose work truly reaches classrooms, families, and communities. I'm honored to welcome here Mr. Jose, educator, literacy leader, independent publisher, and award-winning storyteller. Mr. Welcome to Teacher Talk. It's great to have you here. Please.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you for inviting me. Really feel grateful to be invited.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Hus, I'd love to begin with your journey into literacy education. What inspired you to specialize in phonics-based instruction?
So I think basically it was started with my family because my family were migrants. Parents were non-English speakers. That's where it started because I wanted to contribute to the community. But once I started working in the community college here in Baltimore City, I found that a lot of the textbooks that we were using that the college was providing for us were inadequate when it came to anything to deal with phonics or phonemic awareness. It just seems like they glossed over those very fundamental and essential parts of the language acquisition process. And so that's what really kind of prompted me to start working with phonics-based materials. And what I found was that there really wasn't enough of it. Really wasn't any for adult learners, especially older learners. So I had to manufacture my own, and that's kind of what got me going into it.
Okay, that's great. Honestly, that's a great starting point. So what stands out to me, how phonics became a pathway to independence for learners, not just a teaching strategy, but a tool for confidence and access. Basically, every educator's path is shaped by defining certain moments. And I would like to just explore what pivotal moments have shaped your career.
Okay, so essentially working with community college and presenting that problem that I just laid out for you, it was a pivotal moment for me in my career when the director of the college was more than happy to help me with my goals, which was to improve students the acquisition so that they could improve their assessment scores and just get a better grasp of the language. And it was really that director who went on to become a much bigger figure in my state where I live, the government. He's now part of state government. But early on in his career, when I was earlier in my career, we worked together and he was very instrumental in guiding me, if you will, or at least having that open mind to a lot of my hypothesis, which eventually led to a lot of research and eventual publication of my findings. So that was a very, very pivotal. If I didn't have the college to back me on that work, to be able to go completely away from the curriculum that they had asked us to do, and basically I created my own new curriculum. If it wasn't for the college allowing me to do that, I mean, it probably, who knows what would have happened. So really having them really just be open to it is what changed my career.
Okay, that's great. So that's honestly your background in English and linguistics clearly informs us your work. And so basically, I would like to know about how has that background influenced your teaching approach? So let me a little bit know about that as well.
So I have to look at the group that I'm working with through a linguistic lens first, right? And then I have to have some idea of their cultural backgrounds because that's necessary for me to at least be able to start putting the materials together and to tailor the lessons to fit what their needs are, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I do, even when I'm teaching something that's ESL, for example, because I've
Mm-hmm.
taught, social studies, I've taught math.
Mm-hmm.
So different subject areas you have to approach, you have the materials differently, but the approach is the same. because students always come with the same need to understand the content and the material. And so you have to present in such a way. But I think having that background in ESL allows me to pace myself a little bit more accordingly, depending on the level of students that I'm working with. And ultimately present it in such a way that it would be consumable for them. They would be able to understand it, not go too fast, not go too slow, not overwhelm them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, honestly, that alignment with the standards is a reality for many educators. So basically, I would like just a little bit more dive into and please let me know that what challenge do teachers face when creating inclusive materials aligned with double IDA and CASA for English learners?
Right. So WIDA and CASA. So those are two very different assessment tools, but they both have the same idea. So WIDA is more geared for K-12 and CASA is more geared for adult students. But in both cases, there is one mitigating factor, and that is the cultural relevance of what you are teaching, right? And so I've tailored a lot of my materials to be very secular because I work with students with different religious backgrounds. And it's not that I don't want to highlight or, praise or any of that stuff, particular religions one over the other, for example. So people have to be real sensitive about that. People have to be careful about that sort of thing. And I've learned that probably the hard way, but I learned it that when you're creating inclusive materials, you have to try to be as middle of the road as possible, only just so that you can I like to leave my materials very malleable so that it's, when we're doing Ramadan or, if we're in some other Christian religious time, that we're sensitive to those things and understand that has relevance to the overall climate of the class and just to keep it in the neutral as possible.
Okay, so but what about their reactions? Like, how do they just welcome all those different, various, let's say, religious backgrounds or let's say holidays? So, since the people from the various backgrounds, yes, religious background.
Yes.
So, how do they accept it?
For me, it's all about the narrative, and I allow students to teach me. So obviously, if I'm working with students from a different country or different area and practice certain traditions and religions that I'm not familiar with, or that I'm not that familiar with, I'm always open to learn from them. And I find that when you open the classroom up to that sort of thing, students feel more empowered. That they're able to teach the teacher, if you will, and it also makes them feel more inclusive, and that's important. And it's also important to just honor the fact that they have their own religion, and if it differs from your own as a teacher, you still have to at least honor that they have their own and respect that. And as long as students will know authentically if you're respecting them or not. They can pick it up. They can tell when it's real. That's a currency in the classroom that a teacher must understand how to use.
Yeah, definitely. So writing is one of the most challenging skills for adult learners, especially. What strategies have you found most effective for developing writing fluency among them?
Well, it's just like what I had previously talked about, narrative. Narrative is a great way to start because everyone comes with their own story. Now, they may not all be willing to share everything, and that's understandable. But allowing them to share what they're comfortable sharing is a good place to start, because then they have more control over what's being said. They feel more empowered, and it's certainly something that everyone in the room, especially like the teacher, they're teaching us something about themselves. And in the process, we can correct some of the mistakes that they make and that sort of thing. But it's really, and here's the really important part about the narrative, because it's also the sequence. When you're teaching writing, there's always like the organizational aspects of it, the grammar aspects of it. But when somebody's telling their own story, they already know the beginning, the middle, and the end. And so those sequential elements are key. And it's really just a matter of transferring their understanding from their own stories to eventual breaking down the organization of a different story.
Yeah, that's so insightful, honestly. Yeah, they share their stories, and basically, that's a kind of like motivation part that they really get inspired, encouraged to be heard by someone, like especially by their teachers. So, because most of the times they, as students, try to share their stories with us, but narrative writing is a great tool.
Hmm. Yeah, it also, there's so many other elements of the writing process that you can incorporate into it that they're just kind of doing it anyway. So it's just a matter of connecting the dots. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
remember when you first left, the
Mm.
airport, or when you left your village, or, and you arrived here, and then there's a timeline, right?
Mhm.
And so as long as they keep to the time, because they know their own timeline, so then they'll be able to know what happened first, what happened second, what happened next, etc. And that's a key understanding for the writing process.
Okay, so basically, you also worked extensively with families through literacy-based engagements. And what were the biggest lesson you've learned from that experience?
Working with families, you mean?
Yeah, with families through literacy-based engagements.
Okay. Well, I can look at this two ways. So it's like you can work in the K-12 world, with the children, having the parents work and be part education world in the classroom and the school environment. That is key, and there's a lot of studies that support that. And then there's been a lot of qualitative and quantitative data that supports the family engagement has a very positive effect on student learning outcomes, right? Now, as far as the adults are concerned, I have found that it rings true for that as well. Even in the class I'm teaching right now, I have a family. There's a mother, a son, and a daughter. And in another, I have a mother and a daughter. And so the families come to the classrooms together, and it becomes, they become more invested in it because, there's something about the family engagement encourages students to perform better. They want to do better. Maybe it's because they want to, show their parents, or maybe they want to, show their other siblings that they're capable. Whatever the case may be, it always has a positive picture.
Impact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so great. But what about the administrative responsibilities? How do you manage with those ones while staying connected to teaching? Like, we are the teachers with, let's say, multitaskers, so we try to at the same
Yeah.
time take a responsibility from everything.
Well, you have to compartmentalize. These are separate worlds, right? They don't necessarily intermingle per se during the classroom time. Once I'm in teacher mode, I'm in front of a class, and I'm going over the material, and we're kind of doing the routine, that I'm just like completely focused on that. And it's everything else, because everything around, all the administrative aspects of it, prepared me for that moment. So I don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, do I have enough time to cover this? Am I going to run out of materials, and I'm not going to do it for the next 10 minutes? As long as you're administratively prepping yourself, and if you have enough planned, you will never be in any position where you don't know what to do. So the administrative responsibilities is really just the part of the teacher that is well organized and is planning everything out, is mapping out the entire course. And then you have the passion part, the teaching part, that you relied on the planning well enough to where you don't have to think about that part. Now it's just delivering it. And I think that's what makes the whole machine work as a teacher. And there's a lot of variables, of course. Sometimes you see things come up you weren't anticipating. And
Mhm.
so as long as you work those things into your plan, you're always going to be ahead of the game. Teacher told me a long time ago, failure to plan is planning to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I had to catch myself on that one.
Yeah, yeah, it happens. So yes, great. Actually, well-planned lesson, always working well. So it means that well-managed classroom. Yeah, 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 definitely. Now let me just ask you about a little bit about your book, since I know that your books aim to meet specific learner needs. And I would like to know that what gaps in ESL education were you hoping to fill through your publications?
So it all stems from phonemic awareness. I kind of alluded to this earlier in one of your earlier questions when I was talking about the college and the support that I got. There was a real lack in those textbooks that had to do with phonemic awareness. So everything that I did had to do with that. And I had to go and study and read what other other people had published about their findings. And what I found was that, teaching phonics was at the time not really widely accepted for adults or even adolescents. It just wasn't. And so I just kept pushing and kept pushing. And the book and the success of that textbook really made other people in our ESL world start to take notice that, maybe we should be paying more attention to this. Maybe we should look more into this. And eventually I did write a study, and it was published, academic paper, and it started to get noticed around the country and around the world, honestly, because you can't ignore the foundations. That led into when I started working with higher level students, intermediate and above, what I found was that they were all getting stuck in certain parts. And the reason was because they actually missed the entire phonics piece earlier. They just kind of jumped in and just kind of figured out how English works, and they're just kind of working with it, but they didn't actually get the fundamentals. They just kind of learned as they went along. And so the writing book is really, it's really aiming towards that. The next one that I'm coming out with this year, Sabrina, hopefully we can stay in touch, and I'll be able to share some of that material with you, maybe pilot some of it from you, your students, or the people that you work with, because there are more advanced phonics components for the intermediate and advanced level students that would not be appropriate for the level ones or lower proficiency level students. So that's really what I had in mind going on. Everything is really based on the phonetics of the language that is getting missed. Because I'll tell you what, you teach phonics, you're teaching spelling, you're teaching reading, you're teaching writing. All of those things come together with phonics.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just a no-brainer for me, and I don't know why people who were resisting for so long. But there's so much data now. There's so many studies that prove that, that when you teach phonics, you're teaching spelling, you're teaching reading, you're teaching writing, all at the same time. And it just seems like it's too big variable in the language acquisition process to ignore.
So phonics, yes, as you mentioned, it's a fundamental of the language. If you want to just start to teach, you have to start from the foundation. So basically, I would love to see all those textbooks that are written by you. So so I would love. So
I will be sharing those with you for sure.
Yeah, great. Would be great. So, okay. So basically, we talked about your publications as well, since you mentioned that your publication just based on the, let's say, phonics foundations. You mentioned there how to start teach, let's say, language. But I would like also to know about the independent publishing, since you had it, and independent publishing is becoming more visible in education. And how do you see its role in supporting multilingual communities?
Oh, that's a great question. It's very crucial, and I'll tell you why. Because commercial publishers, they don't always address a lot of the areas that we need to address in the classroom. I don't know why they won't address it, but they won't. And so independent publishers are, they have a lot more autonomy in what they can target. And that's why it's important for multilingual communities, because there are some things that might be unique to some communities more than others. There are some things that are like, when you talk about Latin-based languages, they have an advantage because a lot of the letter symbolisms are similar, right? So there's not a lot of transfer. There's some, of course, with the phonetics of it, but they're familiar with at least most of the letters. Whereas if you're dealing with somebody who's coming from an Arabic background or some other language that isn't Latin-based, they may be starting from a completely different level, a completely different set of rules that they need to understand and need to learn and acquire. And so maybe building other types of I want to learn English type books that are more geared towards people with Arabic background, let's say, or Slavic backgrounds or something along those lines. So that's where you can get real niche about it. And that's why independent publishers are important, because if you're in a region where your communities are mostly XYZ speakers, and that's not a Latin-based language, how can we get them to learn English, let's say, or whatever other language that they're learning? Because it doesn't necessarily have to be English, because this applies to all languages.
So thank you very much. Okay, so let me just ask you one more question about the storytelling. How does storytelling across media complement your work in education, especially?
Oh, well, and in the production of the material, excuse me,
Mhm.
the production of the materials mostly, having a background in audio drama and film has allowed me to give me these tools to work with. So when I put out a video, it's not boring. It's like nobody wants to watch a boring video. It's like it's my nightmare, Sabina. It's my nightmare to produce something where people think is boring. So and it goes to like the whole aesthetics of the book. I want people to feel the book and look at it and feel aesthetically like it's pretty. They want to hold it. They want to go through it. They want to be engaged with it. Same thing with the videos that complement them. Same thing with the audio that complements them. There has to be a little bit of humor, just not too much, but just a little bit of entertainment component to the material so that students don't feel bored. And it also puts them at ease too. You don't want them to feel overwhelmed. If it's too serious, sometimes students get turned off by that.
Yeah. Okay, let me give you just one more question. Okay, but how do you find all those audios, videos? Like, how do you just cope with that balance? So, keeping at the same time the students engaging and away from the boring. So, how do you just balance that situation?
Well, because okay, so like for example, I I like to use examples that students will find funny. Okay, like
Mm.
like when we do like a true or false type of activity, the test to see how well is it camels have wings and can fly, or there's can chickens drive a car, things like that that are just kind of offbeat. They're a little off the wall, like kind of have to stop and think about it. No, a chicken doesn't drive. That's a false statement, right? Okay, so it's like little things, little quirky things like that. Is what I'm saying. Just gets the students engaged long enough to where oh, okay, they understand,
Mhm.
and that's the point.
Mhm. Okay, that's great. So you are checking their comprehension, as I understood, through
Absolutely, all the
the
time.
materials. Yeah. So one of your most impactful project was That's My Word. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. So can you share your story a little bit about that and what kind of impact it just left?
okay. Well, I don't know how many of your viewers might be familiar with Global Act Wu-Tang Clan. They were a hip hop group from like the 90s who became international stars. They're one of the most highly respected hip hop rap groups from the
Mhm.
90s and are still a relevant group even today. They're extremely well known. They're international music act. And one of the members of the Wu-Tang Clan is a rapper by the name of Capadonna.
Mhm.
Capadonna is someone who has a connection with an assistant principal who's a dear friend of mine. And
Mhm.
we collaborated he asked me to go on this project with him because he had an educational angle with it. Because
Mhm.
Capadonna apparently was a special ed student when he was in school, and he struggled through certain things in school, and so they wanted to bring an educational angle to his story, talk about
Mhm.
like his time incarcerated, his time dealing with drug use and just dealing with racism and that sort of thing, cultural aspects, cultural things.
Mhm.
And so my involvement in that, I got to meet him and got to be a part of that world, and it's really interesting to be in and standing on the sidelines and watching these people who are international stars. And I've gotten to meet like the mayor. I've gotten to meet important people who are important. They're big, and it's humbling to me because I'm just at the end of the day, I'm just a school teacher. That's what I come back to, is that I'm a school teacher. I work with students, and I have all these books and I do all these conferences and I talk to a lot of people around the world. But at the end of the day, I come home to my classroom. This is where I live. But that's my word. I think that for me is a reminder that it doesn't matter where you go in the world. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter how big you get. There's a
Mhm.
story there that began in the schoolhouse. It began in the classroom, just like it did for the members of Wu-Tang Clan, just like
Mhm.
it did for anyone else that you find that's famous and rich and whatever. Their story began in a classroom somewhere with a teacher somewhere who believed in them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So every story, just every story has its own, let's say, hero.
Yes.
As you mentioned. Yeah. So let's talk about the innovations looking ahead. So what innovations do you foresee in ESL and TESOL, especially over the next decades?
So I think AI is going to be a major player, not just in other technological parts of our lives, but I think in the classroom it's already starting to have an impact in classrooms. But I think that AI is going to advance in such a way where eventually you'll have like apps where people can practice their English with an AI, or they'll be able to work with an AI to improve their abilities to comprehend. Who knows? I mean, there's going to be more and more apps. It's going to be more integrated in a lot more of the things that we're in contact with on a daily basis, mainly our smartphones. I think that's where a lot of this is going. People are going to have more access to apps
Mhm.
that are probably AI to help
Yeah.
them with their language acquisition. And this is a positive. I don't see it as I know some teachers are worried that this is going to affect the education system. It might, but I think overall there's more upside to it. There's more pluses than there are minuses, at least from this standpoint. I mean, things could change over the next 10 years, but I don't see how this could be a disadvantage.
Okay. So your perspective is just is AI going to take any privilege or not? Just
Well,
over
I'll tell you what I do know, and I can't verify just to what extent, but I know like in the country of El Salvador, in the country of El Salvador, there's the government that has already instituted an AI tutor system. So students have access to a tutor that is AI powered, and that is available to them in their schools, in their public schools, from what I understand. So it's already happening, Sabina. So it's only a matter of maybe they're piloting it there to try it out to see if it doesn't go sideways before they bring it to more industrialized countries. But it's going to happen a lot sooner than we think. And when it does, I think as teachers we all have to evolve with it. There's no point in resisting it. Let's evolve with it.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you very much for sharing so insightful experiences. Okay, so Mr. I think we have to just little bit coming to the end of the podcast. Thank you for sharing your journey, your commitment. But I've got also some questions. So let me just give them as well. But they are called rapid fires.
Sure.
So let me give them to you. So what do you think, coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee. I stay up late. I need coffee.
You're a coffee lover.
Yes,
So
for sure, coffee.
sure, coffee. Okay. So, but what about a book that influenced your teaching philosophy?
So I've gotten into the Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paul Freire. I think I used to pronounce his name. Has a big emphasis on education, and he talks a lot about supporting voicing and dignity and that sort of thing. It's a very powerful book. If you haven't read it, you should check it out. It's called Pedagogy of the Oppressed.
Okay. So one word your student would use to describe you.
Gosh, I hope it's disciplined.
Discipline.
I hope
Okay.
it's disciplined because that's how I model my life. Is everything has to be disciplined.
Yeah, that's a crucial.
Not like discipline like you're being bad. I'm gonna give you discipline in that you set your schedule and you stick to it.
Yeah, definitely. So a podcast you're currently listening to, is there any?
Yes, I am listening to Language Pedagogy podcast by Mike Llerena, someone who I spoke to recently on my own show. It's called the Language Pedagogy podcast.
Okay,
He's a
super.
great guy. I love listening to him.
So a little bit later, I will ask you to share it with me as well.
I absolutely will.
Yeah. If you weren't in education, what career would you pursue?
That's a tough one. I'd probably be probably in journalism or something involved in media. I have a knack for media type things, so I'd probably be working at a TV station or something.
Yeah, but you chose to be teacher.
Yes.
To collect everything, all in one.
Yes, I prefer teaching.
Yes, you prefer that. So one grammar rule you love explaining.
I love the grammar rule of subject verb agreement. It's crucial. It's vital for writing. It's vital for understanding, overall. And students, it doesn't, I've started teaching subject verb agreement up as far down as third grade,
Mhm.
and I'll teach my adult students subject verb agreement. It's very important for language acquisition.
Okay. So, and one more, but the last one confusing English word that you'd like to ban if you could.
Tough.
Tough.
TOUGH, tough, because
Tough.
it's such a malleable word. Like you can be tough as in it's really hard to do, or tough in that, oh, you got to be stronger, or tough in that, oh, just suck it up. There's so many different ways you can go with tough
Yeah.
that it's rather confusing. It's hard to explain, especially to
So
a newcomer. It's really hard to explain to a newcomer.
thank you very much for your sharing insights, your journey, your commitment to breaking barriers in education, as we mentioned as a title. Your work is a great reminder that language learning is about access, identity, and empowerment. So to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Teacher Talk. If this episode inspired you, please follow us, share, and continue the conversation with our educators. So the next time, have a nice day.